Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Nothing But Locks podcast. I'm your host, Ali Melnicki, accompanied by my favorite coworker, Robert Kowalski. How are you doing this morning, Robert?
Ali, just fabulous. Thanks so much for having me on again and talking about the week that was.
Another crazy week. Needless to say, it all started Thursday night when Baker Mayfield played savior for the Rams, coming in, defeating the team that shall not be named on this podcast anymore, which I'm sure you took great joy in watching. Am I right?
What a way to start. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I can't believe that we're actually saying Baker Mayfield on the Rams, rescuing the Rams. And yet here we are.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a rescue it is. They're still not going anywhere, but it gave Rams fans something to at least feel good about. And living in LA, I know that the Rams, Raiders, even though they don't play in the same division, let alone the same conference, there's still rivalry there. The Raiders fans obviously say that they're still the original Los Angeles team. Rams fans a lot are just trying to defend that they didn't become Rams fans 5 years ago. But it was a good game to watch nevertheless. And we had a ton of great games yesterday, particularly the night game was really good to watch. I really enjoyed some of the other games. I did not enjoy watching my Giants pretty much get blown out before the first quarter ended, but we'll get all to that in a second. Let's talk about the betting trends real quick, Robert. What are we looking at? Favorites versus underdogs, overs, unders? How did the books do this week?
Yes, Ali, dogs rise again. It's been kind of the theme of the season. We're looking after the Chargers beat the Dolphins 23-17 on Sunday Night Football. They did close as 3-point home dogs, plus 150 on the money line. It did stay under the 55 points that we posted. NFL favorites went 7-4 straight up, but dogs led 7-4 against the spread. Home teams went 6-5 straight up and against the spread, and totals went over 7 out of the 11 games.
Yeah, and I did pretty good on my picks. I was 7-5 against the spread, a few bad beats. The Bills were pretty much comfortably covering for a while. Then they allowed a late safety and a last-minute field goal with just over a minute left that squashed my pick of the Bills right there. Cleveland probably had every chance in the world to cover against Cincinnati in the fourth quarter, and they just kept messing up. Deshaun Watson still doesn't look like he's 100% there. Definitely looks rusty. But otherwise, it was a winning week, so I'll take it. And let's start with the Bucks 49ers, Robert, because you and I disagreed most about this game when we had our episode on Wednesday. I was all over the 49ers. You were all over the Bucks. So since I could claim that bottle of wine when we do finally meet in person, I'll let you explain this one. What happened to the Bucks?
So much yuck. Oh my God. And yeah, the Niners beat Tampa 35-7. They won yardage 404 to 322. Yards per play, 6.8 to 4.4, 44% to 25% on third downs. Rushing is where I made a big circle with a giant Sharpie and then just blasted a hole through my paper. Outrushed them 209 to 69. And then obviously the drive point drives where they can claim the clock, for lack of a better term. These are drives of 60 or more yards. They outscored Tampa Bay Buccaneers 28-7 there. And then turnovers. Obviously, that's a major factor in any kind of a result. 3-1 in favor of San Francisco. Tampa also had 3 fourth down failures to 1 for San Francisco. By the way, the Buccaneers in their last 11 games are now 1-9-1 against the spread.
It's ridiculous, but I'm not going to brag, but this was one of my best bets of the week. I always said that I like backing very good teams with their backup quarterbacks. I watched Brock Purdy a ton when he was at Iowa State. He was there for years. So even though he's technically a rookie, he's been around for a few years. There was a graphic last week how Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy are the same age. And it's crazy to think that.
That is insane, actually.
It is. But Purdy looked good. I didn't think that he was the greatest, but he did what he had to do. It was definitely a Christian McCaffrey show. But as dominant as the 49ers were, that's not what surprised me. I knew they were going to come out. I knew they were going to score points. but I didn't think that the Bucks were going to be as terrible as they were. I thought Tom Brady coming back to San Francisco would at least make a game out of it. I knew that San Francisco would cover in the end, but I thought this would be at least a 7 to 10 point contest when all is said and done. Robert, it was 35-0 at one point. I think that if the Niners played the last quarter and a half actually played, it could have easily been a 50+ point game. Is this more indication of how bad Tom Brady in the offense was, or what was the 49ers defense that good?
Yeah, no, both actually, and on all sides of the ball, Allie. From what I witnessed and the notes that I took, it's again just an epic collapse. Their offensive Tampa Bay's offensive line has just been decimated, and there's nothing left. There's not even table scraps left for Brady, so he has no time, and that's what happens. And when you see it in real time against an elite NFL defense, that's exactly what's going to happen. Brady had no time to do anything, and not only that, from the other side of the ball, I mean, Tampa kind of knew going in that Purdy was going to get a full start, and they were going to have to figure out exactly how to manage that. If they had all that time to figure it out, they still had 35 put up against them. So it's the offensive system that San Francisco has in place, showing you that once again, it doesn't matter who's a quarterback for San Francisco. They're going to put up their points, and they put them up in bunches yesterday.
Yeah, and Brady again, he had to throw 55 times, and they didn't even come close
No.
to making this any type of game. So let's shy away from the Bucks, because the Bucks have really been bad all year. We're not surprised at that. San Francisco, they went through a little rough patch at the beginning. They seem to have weathered the storm. They were hot. They were probably the hottest team after the Eagles the past few weeks, and then Jimmy Garoppolo went down and Brock Purdy came in. Robert, is Brock Purdy for real? Is he going to take this team and lead them at least to the NFC Championship game?
That's a tall order. Well, I guess we're going to have to answer it right here.
I put you on the spot.
To the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I'll say NFC Championship. They'll probably face the Eagles.
So you're eliminating Dallas.
Dallas almost lost to the Texans yesterday. So
yeah, it's true. They did. All right. Yes. Yeah. I'll say it because I just moments ago said it didn't matter who the quarterback was. So yeah, I better double down and say yes. We'll see the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. You're right. We'll probably touch on Dallas for a little bit later, but they barely had that game taken away from them, yesterday against Houston, and Houston's got one win on the season. But I think honestly, it's those three teams. It's San Francisco, it's Dallas, it's Philly, in no particular order right now. But I think honestly, Shanahan's system at San Francisco is so airtight that it doesn't really matter who's a quarterback. Now, fortunately for them, they have a very capable rookie here, and followed a basic playbook that says, hey, this guy behind you named Christian McCaffrey, you're going to want to involve him in a lot of the games. Oh, and by the way, Deebo Samuel, he's pretty good too.
Yeah, I was
just going to say for San Francisco.
I think it's Christian McCaffrey more that leads them to the NFC Championship game, but you got to give Brock Purdy credit. But Robert, I mean, there's a really good chance that the Niners aren't going to get the number one seed. That's the Eagles have that away, but they should at least. I could see them jumping over Minnesota and getting the number 2 seed, because I honestly see the 49ers winning outright. I think they beat the Seahawks on Thursday night. The Seahawks haven't looked good in weeks. I think they beat the Commanders at home. I definitely think that they beat the Raiders. And then week 18 against the Cardinals, who knows if they sit their starters or not. But there's a very good chance San Francisco can win outright. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to side with you here. Right now, I just think forget about the trend. I just think that they're sizing themselves up and knowing that there's really not much to discuss in terms of their injuries, because they're able to surpass them. I think you're going to probably see them succeed here going down the stretch, Allie, as well.
All right, let's move on to last night's game, the Dolphins against the Chargers. Robert, I can't believe at one point, I think Tua was something like 3 for 17 passing, and how he finished wasn't even close to being good. This was basically a Tyreek Hill showed up for the Dolphins, and basically that was the only offense that showed up for them. So what went wrong here for the Dolphins last night? Because this is the second week in a row they've really struggled.
And that this and struggling is definitely putting it correctly. They final score for the Chargers 23-17. They won yardage 432 to 219. Right. And this is a very un-Miami type of a box score. Normally, they're the ones on that side of the ledger. So when the end up having that many points scored up against them, you would think that it's really not much to discuss because they're good for 30 or so, right? I mean, it's not even a question if they're going to be able to score that many. It's kind of their defense. Well, their defense only gave up kind of a manageable score, 23. So when you break it down a little bit further and you see that Miami didn't even get into the red zone, you got to factor in where the failures are, right? So note that you're right. It's honestly, Allie, it was, the Tyreek Hill show pretty much all the way. It's just a strange affair where if you don't get into the red zone to even have a chance to score, how are you going to be putting up any points? 17 is as low as I recall them putting up. Mm-hmm. So is it really just not that good a team anymore? Allie, I'd love to hear your take on this one.
So I went back and forth with the Dolphins all season. You remember in the preseason, I actually took their under in their win total. I wasn't buying the Dolphins hype. I thought actually it would be semi comparable to Arizona, just be a shit show. I didn't think Tua was going to be as good as he was. And he's really had a stretch of games where he's been that good. But the last two games, he's really faltered. I understand against San Francisco because they do have the best defense in the league. That was one of my best picks last week. This week, I did pick the Chargers to cover and win outright, actually. We disagreed on this game as well the other day. From what I was seeing, though, with Tua last night, I couldn't have even predicted he was going to be that bad against a Chargers defense that isn't good. It just, I don't know if this was an anomaly. I don't know if he's just now going through a bad stretch or if this is the Tua that is really the inconsistent Tua that we've seen the first two seasons. I still need a little more time to make a proper evaluation. I don't want to overreact or underreact, but I will say Tua is not in consideration for MVP anymore. That's a definite. He played himself out of the race. It's going to come down to Pat Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. Probably Jalen Hurts will edge Pat Mahomes because Mahomes has won it before. But Robert, my thing is this game, I really will put the blame on Tua. Is that wrong to say?
No, of course it's not. He's got everything there. It's not like he was, short a tight end or having a backup left and right guard. And all the pieces were there for him to win. It was just the lack of execution. They never even sniffed the red zone. That's unheard of all season long. And so they've started to show cracks. Now, this still kind of obviously, plays into the favor for them to make the playoffs. And we could continue to break down their division, but it definitely looks like Buffalo has, righted their ship in terms of winning the division and quite possibly even getting still, a first round bye in the playoffs. Miami, on the other hand, after this one, it definitely looks like they can't travel anymore, Ali.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's funny because they were doing all the comparisons last night to the 2020 NFL draft because, as we know, Tua was drafted number 5 by Miami. The LA Chargers took Justin Herbert right after them. I would say, because they were doing who has a better career, Robert, who would you rather have as your quarterback right now, today? Tua or Justin Herbert?
Right, with today's NFL game, I'd probably, give me Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, I said that I was having a discussion with a few people on Twitter this morning. And if you look at their 3-year career, Justin Herbert's been the more consistent player. He's already set a record, I believe, the most amount of passing yards in the first 3 seasons. Tua's just had a really good stretch of a few games this season. His first 2 years, you can't chalk anything up. And I will say the Chargers are going to be a dangerous team, Robert, because last night they finally got Keenan Allen back and they finally got Mike Williams back. It was the first time they both been on the field together since the first week of the season. I think this Chargers team, and I had picked them to win the AFC West before the season. I think now we're seeing a Chargers team that is getting back to their strength, and they're going to be dangerous come postseason. What do you think?
I think so as well. And so if we break down and take a look into my small crystal ball here, we'll look at the Chargers schedule. They'll be, see, what am I put them up here? They're hosting Tennessee. I've got them as a 3-point favorite. A small little bit of movement right now as they're starting to see money being taken on Tennessee, but not enough to get off that 3. So favorite at home. And then we're going to go week 16 at the Colts.
And that should be a win.
That'll be a win. Hosting the Rams. That'll be a win. And then at Denver. So, I always said you got to pick up 10 wins or more. They've got 7 already. Let's say so Tennessee, if they win Tennessee, Colts, Rams, Denver. I mean, they could get 10. They could win out and get 11 wins and make it into the playoffs.
I think they lose this week to Tennessee. I think coming off a big win like that on Sunday night, I think they fall a little flat. I think Tennessee has just had 2 terrible games in a row. I think this would be a good game for Tennessee to bounce back in. But I do like them winning the final 3 and finishing the year 10-7. And that should be good enough for a wild card spot. I would think so.
Right.
All right, let's move on. Unfortunately, we have to talk about this one, but the Eagles versus the Giants. Robert, I don't even want to talk about this, but from the first drive when the Eagles just had that, it was something like a ridiculously long 9-minute drive or something like that. I knew we had no shot. Our defense looked atrocious yesterday. I was so embarrassed that if I was Wink Martindale, I would have been more embarrassed than anyone else in that building yesterday. I know the offense didn't really do much, but they were behind the 8 ball from the start. You had the special teams screwing up when Gillian, the punter, dropped that punt and set Jalen Hurts up at the 30-yard line of the Giants. I mean, sum up this game for me.
Pretty easy, right? Giants gave up 437 yards.
Yep.
Third downs, Philly was pretty much, coin flipping their way to succession, 55% on third downs. And they allowed the Eagles to rush for 253 yards. Right. So that's a recipe for a Giant success. Now, if you just kind of just pull back a little bit more as we're down to the last few weeks, the Giants defense this year, Allie, have given up 430 plus yards to Philly and Dallas. So, let's forget about moving outside of the division. Against the top 2, we're just hemorrhaging against them, and it doesn't really need to go really much further than that. They're going to need an awful lot of help on the defensive side of the ball in the offseason to compete in this division.
I was just going to say, because you really couldn't fault the offense that much because they were behind so quickly. It was before you knew it, it was 21-0. And Daniel Jones did show up to play. It's just Saquon Barkley, you could tell his neck was bothering him because he barely was in playing the snaps. I really chalk it up to this was a defensive failure. They did not show up to play. I know Leonard Williams was out. I know we're still missing Xavier McKinney. We're still missing some other major guys on the defensive front, but this was inexcusable. You let that team literally run all over you. It was just the Miles Sanders show. Jalen Hurts, I believe, just ran more than he had to really throw. Right. It was missed tackle after missed tackle. That 4th down touchdown to Devonta Smith. Yeah. I couldn't believe how I thought that was getting intercepted. I don't know how you don't intercept that ball or you don't hit it from the receiver. It was just a blown tackle, a missed interception. If I'm Wink Martindale, I'm so embarrassed by my defense today. And I'm lighting a fire under their asses because, Robert, this is it this week. If you lose to the Commanders, you're on the outside looking in for the playoffs. The Lions are hot. The Lions, they play the Jets this week. I'll actually be at that game on Sunday because my brother's a Lions fan. But this is it. You need to beat the Washington Commanders in Washington. You screwed up last week when you didn't beat them in the overtime game. What do you think, Robert? Is this the make or break for him this week?
Yeah, it is, right? And so again, now we come back to that tie last week against Washington and how important that was. They flexed this game already to Sunday night.
Yep.
And the Commanders, I opened them up as I really want to open them up short. I opened them up 4, but it's already up to 4.5, and I saw 5 just appear for Washington as the home team here. So they'll have to win here on the road as a dog. Then it doesn't get any easier in week 16. They'll be at Minnesota, probably be catching a touchdown. Week 17, hosting the Colts, maybe a little win there as a field goal favorite. And then you end the season at Philly, right? And you'll probably be a 10 plus point dog there. So again, the magic number is 10. You're at 7 right now. You got to win 3 of the next 4, and it starts right here on the 18th of December.
I would hope, because I usually love backing teams coming off of embarrassing losses. I feel like you get embarrassed, you play your heart out next week. I would hope that the best thing that came out of this just debacle yesterday is that they will show up against Washington next week. That's my biggest hope. I don't have the best feeling because this team has just let me down since it turned November. But what do you think, Robert? How do you feel going into the Washington game?
It's fair. Yeah. It's kind of tough to pick up pieces and say, well, here's what was good from getting blown out by the Eagles. But all you can do right now is heal up and prep for the next team. And I mean, you really have a very good idea of what the Commanders' playbook is. So you would think that they could fix things and make their way in. So my initial lean, is definitely grabbing points, alongside with you just from a betting perspective. But they're definitely going to have their backs against the wall here in Washington next week.
Yeah, and one quick note, I think that how bad the defense have played, it actually took away a lot of the blame from Daniel Jones. It was the first time I was reading articles in all the New York papers yesterday that actually commended Daniel Jones as the only player that actually showed up to play yesterday.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see that. I hope that the brass does realize we have a ton more to do with this team than just try to look for another quarterback. I think it would be smart just to give Daniel Jones franchise tag him, keep him another year. You're going to have to make some big adjustments to the defensive line. Same thing in the secondary, same thing with the offensive line. So there's a lot more pieces of the puzzle you got to fix first. All right, the last game I want to highlight was another one of my best bets of the week, and that was the Lions beating the Vikings. Robert, what did you see in this game?
That's just fabulous because gambling Twitter insisted that Minnesota should have been the favorite. Well,
Oh, yeah, I know. You should have seen all the Twitter trolls I got into arguments with last week that said I was crazy that I was so confident with the Lions.
so the Lions did end up not only winning, but they covered as a 2.5 point favorite. They won 34-23, put up 464 yards of offense to 416. Rushing was a big factor. They outrushed the Vikings 134-22. And then, of course, turnover battle. Lions forced 2 turnovers and protected the ball without turning the ball over at all. Both of them did have a 4th down failure. The Lions missed a 47-yard field goal try. But the defensive woes continue, Allie, for Minnesota. Already one of the worst in the league before allowing 464 yards on 6.7 yards per play to Detroit with no takeaways. And oh man, those surging Lions, they're now 5-1 straight up in their last 6. Only loss was by 3 to Buffalo on Thanksgiving. 6-0 against the spread. This is like an orchestra, at the crescendo, just like right at the moment. They're talented, they're enthusiastic, and they're healthy, Allie. I can't believe it. Good for the Lions.
I think they make the playoffs easily. I really do. I think either the loser of the Giants Commanders game this weekend is not going to be in the playoffs, and the Lions are. I think the Lions beat the Jets. I think they have a favorable schedule the rest of the way. I've been high on the Lions since before the season started. And I know we just talked about gambling Twitter. If you look at the Nothing But Locks Twitter page and you see how much arguments I got into with Vikings fans over the past 2 weeks, it's crazy. I don't go back and brag. That's always been I don't do I told you so. That's always been my mantra. But I have been saying all season that the Vikings are not what their record indicates. I really haven't seen that signature win. I know people want to point to the Bills game, but again, I reiterate, Josh Allen was a game time decision. He probably shouldn't have even played. There was a lot of factors that went into the Vikings winning that game. Otherwise, they played the Dolphins when Tua was out. When they beat the Lions the first time, that was only after DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra went out. They were also they didn't have Jameson Williams left. I think the Vikings remind me of last year's Tennessee Titans. They're going to have the record, but their talent level just doesn't match to what their record is. In the first round of the playoffs, I would take the Cowboys over the Vikings. Again, even we just saw the Cowboys blew them out a few weeks ago. Definitely the 49ers over the Vikings. Heck, I might even take the winner, whether it's the Bucks or the Carolina Panthers or the Atlanta Falcons. I might even take the winner of the NFC South over the Vikings. I don't see the Vikings besides Justin Jefferson, Robert. I don't see what else they have. What do you think of the Vikings?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you kind of nailed all the notes there because, where, years ago it would be, Thielen as a key contributor. He really hasn't done much of all on offense. And, Cook, for as talented as he is, he's kind of just been silenced the whole entire season. Hasn't really had any kind of a breakout game. But the biggest factor that I want to point at is they're just the defense. There is none.
Right.
They regularly have points in bunches being put up against them. And, right now in this league, you got to succeed. Look, you're right. They do have the wins, but that doesn't really matter because those losses that they do have, they're like really stinging losses. And those are the ones that really stand out the most. Now, sure, obviously, and by the way, we're moving to games on Saturday again as we get closer to the end
I
of the
love that.
season. So the Vikings will be a small favorite hosting the Colts, but I don't really have much faith in backing the Vikings at home here, even against the Colts. So it's going to be really tough to take a look at Minnesota's schedule the rest of the season and say, yeah, it looks like it's good. I mean, favored against the Colts, but they could lose that. Then, of course, we mentioned the Giants. They're going to have that, key NFC matchup there for a playoff spot. They'll be at Green Bay, and then they'll be at Chicago. So those are all coin flip games. I don't see them as big favorites in any one of them, Allie.
Yeah, and the Giants are capable of pulling off the upset. We saw them pull off the upset against teams like the Ravens earlier in the year, the Packers when the Packers were still thought to be good. So the Giants do have the capability. I know that they're severely injured right now. There doesn't look like they're getting too many reinforcements back. Leonard Williams will be a big difference when he is on the defense. They might get some other help back, but I do think that the Giants can be a sneaky play against the Vikings. Okay, let's move on to our next segment. And since we have Christmas coming up in less than 2 weeks, obviously all kids want to be on Santa's nice list and not the naughty list. So, Robert, we're going to play a game of who's on the naughty list. I'm going to name a team, and you have to say which player, coach, or front office personnel is most to blame for this team's failure this season. You ready?
Okay, this is good. Sure, let's do it.
All right. Who's on the naughty list for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Oh, God, it's been such a weird season, to be honest. I mean, Tom Brady, he doesn't even look the same with like consistent throws of 5 to 10 yards, like within the line of scrimmage. Although, there's been more like downfield throws as of late. It's it's nothing like it was back in the fly off the handle Bruce Arians days. I guess with that being said, Ali, oh man, that's kind of just like a fraction of the issues. Defense kind of been playing well. I mean, not if you look at yesterday. There's major injuries to the secondary throughout the season. No Shaq Barrett that I'm looking at now. Offense just hasn't gotten it done. So I mean, the offensive line was depleted entering the season due to injuries. So, okay. So I'm gonna then if it's not the O-line, and I can't really say it's Brady because Brady's not getting the time, this running game has just been horrible. Uh, yeah, of course, the passing game's been affected by the offensive line, but no, it's definitely the running game. It just hasn't been there for the Bucs all year, and especially in the red zone where you absolutely have to capture points. So my finger naughty list, running game, Tampa.
I was gonna put Todd Bowles here because he just looks so outcoached every game. It's not even funny. And he doesn't even look like he's coaching half the time. But then I'm gonna pivot to the front office because they knew the holes that they had coming into the season. They knew that Gronk wasn't coming back. They needed help at the tight end position. He was one of their key receivers. They knew they had lost Antonio Brown. They brought in an aging Julio Jones who definitely hasn't lived up to any kind of potential he had coming into the season. Mike Evans has just disappeared this season. I don't even know where he's been half the season.
What happened there? My God.
And they lost several guys on defense, Jordan Whitehead, just to name a few. I honestly think the front office just didn't do its job this offseason. I think they focused on, is Tom Brady retiring? Is he not? They probably had a few plans in place of what they were going to do at the quarterback situation had he not returned. He did return. That's a big salary to go against the cap. So I will blame the front office for not doing the job and filling in the replacements where they needed to be. All right, next one. Who's on the naughty list for the Arizona Cardinals, Robert?
I could point so many fingers. So, uh, okay. I guess so far this season with the Cardinals, the idea of, running it back has kind of seen the opposite of what their intended outcome is. So look, we got with the Cardinals, there's multiple injuries to the offensive line. Again, we're talking about the O-line. Then there's suspensions, injuries to almost the entire receiving core. Defensively, they've been inconsistent. They've made big plays and forced turnovers, but then on like the very next drive, they just completely take off an entire set. They're not rushing the passer, they're not stopping the run. Definitely seen a regression in Kyler Murray. Absolutely have seen a regression there. The kicking situation, and I know we never really talk about kickers, but that's anything but stable. They used 4 kickers on the year. One of them was so bad he was benched after missing an extra point. And then Kingsbury. So I guess in the end, what's really the core? The Cardinals just aren't talented enough, Ali. They just aren't. So I'm gonna point my finger on all of you, the entirety, all of it, everything inside that stadium. I know I'm really wanted to get something specific, but man, it's just been a complete failure from A to Z.
Yeah, it definitely has. But if I'm going to put the blame on one person, it's going to be Kyler Murray. He pulled a lot of bad karma in the offseason. First, he demanded a trade. They really weren't looking to trade him. They gave him the contract extension he wanted. Then there was controversy over that because they told him he had to watch film study. Yes. That was disrespectful, even though he had already signed the contract. So then they had to take out the language that he doesn't have to watch film study. Well, he's played pretty much the season like he doesn't watch film study. So they probably should have left that clause in the contract. So I'm 100% blaming this season on Kyler Murray. All right, next team. Robert, who's on the naughty list for your favorite, the Las Vegas Raiders?
For this one. Look, this whole Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler thing, it's not working, right? So there's lots of reasons to be concerned for this, and they've been consistently like just epically brilliant at collapsing in the fourth quarter. So everyone's calling now, get McDaniels fired, and I guess those arguments are kind of valid. Offense has gone cold. But I just want questions answered. Here's my question, right? So Ziegler's gone, he's kind of done well with, contract extensions, obviously with Carr and with Devontae Adams. So that's nice. Then, you get some future draft capital, but you get that capital and Like, for example, their secondary, you could see it all year long. It's just so thin and it's so bad. How do they address it? Let's put 5 running backs in the running back room. Good. So we're going to see a lot of running plays, right? No, it's Josh Jacobs every single time. Hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs. Throw the ball to Josh Jacobs. Keep him in for blocking. So the construction of the roster is just really, really. I just question the whole entire thing, and their defense hasn't been answered. So one of those two, I'm just gonna say the both of them. Jorge no los dos, Ziegler, McDaniels, get out of here.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with you. This is a team that was a playoff team last year. You could have stuck with your interim head coach, who the team really gravitated toward, who they really liked. You chose to go with a failed head coach in Josh McDaniels, and this is what you're doomed with. You got Devontae Adams in the offseason. That should have been that should have propelled you to being a very good team, and it made you only worse. So 100% agree with you there. All right, next team, Robert. Who's on the naughty list for the Los Angeles Rams?
Okay. Well, I guess unlike the Buccaneers of 2021, the Rams didn't exactly run it back. Uh, let's see this. Okay, so I've been many times quoted on our podcast by saying, they sold their soul after winning the Super Bowl. So let's exactly see what that means, right? So Whitworth retires. I'm just looking at last year's roster. Corbett, Darius Williams left in free agency. Von Miller's in Buffalo. Robert Woods was traded. Opted not to bring back Sony Michel. Right. So to an extent, they were really key contributors in the Super Bowl run, right? And it's kind of hard to know, like, until they're gone, just how much the Rams were going to miss them. And by the way, how about the coaching staff? That was gutted. Kevin O'Connell, he's obviously he's with the Vikings. And then he took Wes Phillips with him. Um, uh, Avero, he's now with Denver. Marcus Dixon, he went. So there's far more than just the players that were missing, and saying there wasn't really anything there, from the draft to fill it, because their coordinators left. So not to mention losing coaches like Brandon Staley, Aubrey Pleasant, front office executives, Ray Agnew this season before. It's a lot that just disappeared in the offseason. And so that's, you want to talk about a naughty list, man, they filled up, really significantly. Just the inability to maintain and roll back what they did to succeed absolutely is the largest reason as to why they failed. They just didn't have any leadership to bring together a team. And this is exactly where you end up. You end up sub 500.
Yep, totally agree with you. I think this one will be an easy one, but how to do it anyway. Who's on the naughty list for the Denver Broncos, Robert?
Yeah, definitely easy here. God, man, how many primetime slots did everyone think that Denver was going to be worth watching in?
Right.
Just doesn't stop, right? Okay, so we're gonna put the pair. I've got two index fingers, one on the left, one on the right. One is for Hackett, one is for Russ Wilson. The defense still very good, but Hackett, Wilson, naughty.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. I think even more Russell Wilson than Hackett. Hackett, I'll give a little bit of a break to. He is a first-year head coach. There's still a lot of learning curves there. But Russell Wilson, he came into Denver. He already had the clubhouse kind of annoyed with him when he pulled up in that ridiculously huge Hummer. He thought he was a man. He's getting a dose of reality. You're not as good as your Seattle Seahawks tenure indicated, especially now you look what Geno Smith is doing in your place. So Russell Wilson, number one on the naughty list. All right. Our final segment is always everyone's favorite, and that's our buy or sell segment. So you ready for this one, Robert?
I'm always ready for
I
some.
know it's early. But we're gonna rough it up early.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. This is great.
All right. Buy or sell. Brock Purdy will be the starting quarterback for the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Oh no. It's too early. Where's my coffee? No, no, all right. No, okay, I gotta come up. I gotta come up with a position. Um, I'm selling. That's it. I'm selling. It's either Dallas or Philly. I'm selling.
I'm gonna buy this one. I really think, and this isn't my Giants bias, but I think a Niners versus Eagles game, the Niners will be by far the best defense that the Eagles has seen all year. I think they will finally falter against a top defense in the league. I'm gonna say yes, Brock Purdy, the next Tom Brady. Maybe not that far, but he will. I think he will get them to the Super Bowl.
Love it. I love it.
All right, next one. Buy or sell. Roughing the passer penalties will be allowed to be challenged next season.
Oh, boy, yeah, I know. It's just and it's just so hyper extended. Right? It happens like every time we watch, and we always wonder, like, okay, why? It's like we're having this reaction. It's just like your knee kicks out with the rubber mallet every time. You're like, okay, where's the yellow flag on that hit? I'm gonna sell this. Uh, Judgment calls, I don't think are ever going to go away, but the
Right.
rules continue to be amended. You know, I guess they made this amendment back in 2018, and it's only tangentially related to the issue of, I guess, forcible contact, that the competition committee clarified in the spring. It's just so strange. Um, I don't know. I don't want to even go into the details of this rule, but I mean, oh man, I guess I'm going to be playing back in my day. Quarterbacks would just get absolutely torched.
Annihilated.
And there's no flag. It's just a different game now, right? And obviously, you got to protect the assets. What are the most important assets? It's your quarterbacks. It's the face of the franchise. It's the face of the league. So you're going to have these penalties, and it's going to be judgment call. But we all know that those quarterbacks are going to be protected very, very, very highly.
Yeah, I agree with you. They don't want any more challenges in this game. They failed with the pass interference challenge a few years ago. They're not going to make a mistake here. All right, next one. Buy or sell, Robert. Pat Mahomes will win the NFL MVP.
You know, is he the only quarterback like ever that has quote like a bad game when he throws for 350 and 3 touchdowns against the top 5 defense in the league?
Yeah, it's pretty much just,
That's how good he is. It's so incredible. I think I'm gonna sell. I think it's Jalen Hurts. I've got to make Jalen Hurts there. I think if I look at like my top 5 or 4 at least, Burrow's definitely, entrenched himself there. Allen's still there. Obviously, Mahomes. To me, it's Jalen Hurts still.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there, though I would vote Pat Mahomes over Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts, he's been a great story, but the Eagles' schedule, it has been easier than the majority of the better teams in the league. I think Jalen Hurts is just surrounded by talent, not taking anything away from him, but he does have the best offensive line in the game. He has 2 of the best receivers in the game. Before Dallas Goedert was hurt, still one of the best tight ends in the game. He has a great running back with Miles Sanders behind him. I just think that he has so much more than Pat Mahomes has, but I do think that the voters will give Jalen Hurts the award. All right, next one, Robert. Buy or sell? Tyreek Hill will reach 2,000 receiving yards this season.
All right, we're gonna have to dig a little. This is a great number, by the way. So I think he's got like 1,400 yards already. 14,
Yeah, something crazy.
right? So they're gonna obviously be playing meaningful games, right? And again, it starts right here with this incredible rematch against Buffalo on Saturday. So he'll probably get a nice chunk there. Then hosting Green Bay, he'll get a nice chunk there at New England, and then hosting the Jets. So if he's picking up like a buck 12 a game with 4 to go, this one's gonna be close. I think he's gonna just miss out. Oh my God. And it's not like they're gonna say, okay, you know what, it doesn't matter. We made the playoffs, let's pad the stats. No, these games are gonna really matter down the stretch. It's not like they're gonna just say, let's go ahead and get him his 2,000. So I'm gonna sell. He will just miss it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. The Bills are going to be a tough matchup for the Dolphins. Same thing the last week of the playoffs, the last week of the season. The Jets still have a top defense, even if their offense hasn't been producing as of late. So I'll agree with you. I actually think Justin Jefferson will have a better chance of hitting the 2000 than Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill will come close. All right, final one, Robert. Buy or sell, the Panthers or the Falcons will win the NFC South instead of the Bucks.
I just tweeted this out last night. One of those teams is going to absolutely host a playoff game. I don't know. So look, maybe the Falcons might have to make an about face because they said during the bye week that Ridger's going to be their quarterback. I mean, you can make the playoffs here. I don't know. I mean, but look at this. This is insane, right? A couple of weeks ago, Carolina coach, was his name? Wilkes. Yeah. He kicks Robbie Anderson off the field during a loss to the Rams, then trades him to Arizona the next day.
I even think he's caught in a pass with Arizona.
It's literally, they were imploding. Since then, Carolina's what, 4-2-1 straight up, 6-1 against the spread with Sam Darnold and PJ Walker at quarterback. I'm buying it. To hell with it. I'm buying it. I think one of those teams is absolutely going to win the division.
I'm gonna buy as well, and it's more because I think the Bucks schedule is a lot harder than either the Falcons or the Panthers. This week alone, they have to play the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a loss to them, so they're already going to lose this week. Yes. So all the Falcons or the Panthers have to do is win, and I believe the Panthers hold the tiebreaker over the Bucks because they beat them earlier this season. Then they got to play the Cardinals in Arizona. That's definitely going to be a toss-up game. And then their last two games against the Panthers and the Falcons, Robert, they might lose both of those games.
They could.
So, I agree with you right there.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa's going to host Carolina. I figure it's going to be probably a touchdown favorite. And then at Atlanta, there's a very good chance they could be dogs. I mean, it kind of depends. We'll have to see if they decide to, do the whole Ritter thing. If it's Ritter at quarterback, it's Tampa probably going to be the favorite. But as we've seen, it doesn't really mean that they're going to win that game. You're right.
Right. Well, that is our show for today. I want to thank everyone for joining. And before we sign off, Robert, who do you got in tonight's game, Patriots and Cardinals?
And we kind of touched on the Cardinals again. And I honestly really thought when we closed Sunday and we had Patriots as a 1-point favorite, I figured, yeah, this makes sense. I think the Cardinals will probably get to pick. Nah, it went the other way. Patriots are now a 2.5-point favorite. The total set to 44. On the road in Arizona, and it just, as bleak as it seems, I gotta still feel that the Cardinals pick up some pieces here. I think the Cardinals get the win here tonight.
I agree with you. I have the Cardinals both winning outright and obviously covering since they are dogs. I think that the Patriots they're in a bit of a rut. They've lost, I believe, 2 straight. They were just embarrassed by the Bills on Thursday night last week. They obviously lost to the Vikings on Thanksgiving Day. I think there's going to be clamoring for Bailey Zappi to get another shot because Mac Jones doesn't seem like he's going to be the answer. So I agree with you right there, Robert. All right, that is our show, everyone. Robert and I will be back later this week to give you our picks for the weekend. And I want to thank everyone for joining. Take care.